Welcome, everybody, to our September 7th regular City Commission meeting. We'll call the meeting to order. And if you can, please rise and join me in the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us begin this meeting by taking a brief moment of silence and reflection on the many individuals impacted by Hurricane Idalia, both in this community and in the Big Bend area, and during this time of recovery. Thank you. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jennifer. All right. We'll move on into presentations. Our first item is our local action award for the Gladys E. Douglas Preserve. I'm going to turn this over to our city manager, Jennifer Bramley.
Thank you very much, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. Well, tonight is a very good evening for us. We did receive the Local Action Award from the Florida League of Cities, as all of you are aware, for the Gladys Douglas property. And Aaron Russell from the League of Cities is here to present it to us this evening. So Aaron, if you'd like to step up. Thank you.
I'm going to set this down.
Sure.
But I don't drop it.
Please don't.
I will be devastated. But good evening, Mayor, Commission, staff, and citizens. As stated, my name is Aaron Russell. I'm the Membership Program Specialist from the Florida League of Cities, which is located in Tallahassee, Florida. And just for the benefit of the audience members who may not be familiar with the Florida League of Cities, we have served as the united voice for Florida's 411 cities, towns, and villages since 1922. And our goal is to meet the needs of cities by providing advocacy, education, resources, and other services. And of course, always standing up for the rights of government closest to the people, including governments like the city of Dunedin. So I want to take a moment to say thank you for being a dedicated member of the Florida League of Cities. The League has been recognizing outstanding cities, towns, and villages since 2009 through our Florida Municipal Achievement Awards program, which has 4 awards, including Economic Advancement, Environmental Stewardship, Public Engagement, and then the award I'm here to present you with this evening, which is the Local Action Award. And the Local Action Award is given to a city for a specific, single citywide effort that successfully addresses a local need. And the city of Dunedin's winning entry, the Gladys E. Douglas Preserve, is a collaboration between the city, county, and the community to protect the largest remaining natural area in Pinellas County. And the preserve was originally the homestead property of Gladys E. Douglas, a local resident, and after her passing, the property fell under contract to a developer. And when that developer walked away, the city and county had a short amount of time to raise the necessary funds to purchase the property to preserve this land. More than 1,700 individuals donated their time, efforts, and money to this cause, and the community raised $4.5 million to protect and preserve this environmentally sensitive area. And in addition, the city and county reallocated $5.5 million in land preservation funds in the middle of the fiscal year. This program is a testament to city leadership. It's a testament to your excellent staff who executed a successful campaign and program. And the Florida Municipal Achievement Award is the highest award that we give to cities. And so in conclusion, I just want to say congratulations on an excellent program. This is truly a phenomenal effort in engaging your community. You can see it in what you guys accomplished in such a short amount of time. So in addition to the trophy that I'm here to present you with this evening, the city will be featured on the League's website, social media, and in our statewide Quality Cities magazine. And so on behalf of the Florida League of Cities, I'm honored to present you with the 2023 Florida Municipal Achievement Awards in the Local Action category. Congratulations.
Thank you.
get some pictures. Thank you. We'll have comments. We'll get a picture real quick. Yeah. And then we'll do some comments. Just come stand right up
Okay.
here and we'll just stand. I guess we'll hold this.
Move it.
Get over here, Jennifer.
Could we have Vince and Laney step up
Yeah.
as well?
Yeah,
in front?
Come on up. Yep, you guys can get up here.
You're going to be the first award in our new award case.
Yeah. I love it. That's awesome. All right. Are we ready? Got it? Very good. All right, we're gonna have comments, so don't go anywhere. You can,
I do have just one more
Yep.
thing to say. After you.
No,
all of
no.
you, of course.
go ahead, Jennifer.
Oh, I just wanted to thank Vince and Laney for putting together the award application. It was very thorough. They submitted it to me to read. I read it once. It was perfect, and we submitted it. So the award application was superior. And thank you, Vince, and thank you, Laney.
Well, I know we all are very excited about this. I'll turn first to Vice Mayor.
This is just a great occasion for us. Really pleased to receive an award like this from an organization that's been around since 1922, of which all of us pay a bunch of attention to because it does represent the municipalities here in our great state of Florida. So, in fact, we're going tomorrow to a meeting in Orlando. So we're getting ready for that. But thank you very much for this award. And so I really would like to just say on behalf of all of the citizens, those who gave emotional support, financial support, that worked hard on this, this is for all of us. So congratulations to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Commissioner Cowell?
Thank you, Mayor. I just think it's a wonderful testament to the community and how hard we work, how passionate we are, and just lends to the belief that we all didn't move here for concrete and asphalt. So, yay for us.
Commissioner Frainie?
So, I've said it before, I'll say it again. We've celebrated this over and over again, but I don't think there's any, more important decision that you make than about green space or preserving our waterfront. In this case, it was green space, 44 acres, and then Jerry Lake ultimately for over 100 acres. And I think that, when you think about what that gives to generations in the future, that's the best gift that you do. And I've said it before as well, that when you look at green space that other generations have left to Dunedin and had the foresight to do, nobody ever looks back and said, that was really stupid that you spent that money on that green space. Everybody always says, wow, that was smart. And I'm super proud to be part of the community, not just the commission, but the community, because it was such a community effort to make this happen. And that's what I'm the most proud of. The community stood up to make it happen. So, but thank you to Florida League for this recognition.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Walker?
So this is a truly testament of what can happen when the entire community comes together. It was a community effort. The city made it a priority to preserve that as green space, and we are going to be better for a very long time because of that. I understand that this is the third award that we have actually received for the acquiring the property and not developing it as it currently stands. We're also very proud of the recognition by the Florida League of Cities. We're one municipality out of hundreds here in Florida, and the fact that we were recognized for this achievement is significant. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I thank you for the award, too. But when I think about what we achieved here, I still get goosebumps. Dunedin, the epitome of who Dunedin is green space and the environment, and preserving who we are and where we came from. And our forefathers before us preserved Honeymoon Island and Caladesi Island and Hammock Park, and now we have the Gladys Douglas Preserve. I also want to thank the Pinellas Community Foundation, the Hackworth family, Nikki Day from BMO, Jennifer, our city manager, our Dunedin Parks and Rec folks, Vince Laney and everybody else. I don't think I've ever experienced anything like what we went through with this. I think Jennifer and I were on the telephone every day, about 5 times a day for about 5 or 6 months, trying to negotiate for the property. And coming up with $10 million is no easy feat to do when you don't have it. But it started with our $2 million, and then it went to the county's 3.5, I think. And then when the Pinellas Community Foundation, which is a fundraising arm, stepped in, they were able to bring a $2 million contribution, which told the world we need to start contributing to this too. And that's what led to all of those 1,000 checks that you referred to, you know, and all of the local environmental groups doing fundraisers and checks from $25 to $10,000 to then another $2 million contribution. It was infectious. And, you know, the folks that gave that money, some of which would like to remain anonymous, we thank them greatly, because we'll get to enjoy this, but our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren and our great-great-grandchildren are going to enjoy this, because the city of Dunedin doesn't sell its parkland. It has to put it on a ballot, and you, as our voters and our residents and our constituents, have to vote to sell something like that, and that's never going to happen. So it will be there forever, and I'm very, very proud that this commission was a part of that, including you, Rob, even though you were late to the party. We love you anyway. And I hope that this is sort of a testament to other municipalities as to what can be done, because it is infectious, and it can be done, and I hope we set an example for many other people to do the same. So thank you again for the award. We really appreciate it, and thanks for coming all the way down here. All right. Okay. Our next presentation is the National Constitution Week Proclamation, and I will turn that over to Vice Mayor Tornga.
Thank you, Mayor. This is one of this commission's most favorite presentation. So this is for September 17th through the 23rd for 2023. We have Irma Anderson and Jane Turner, parliamentary and honorary past Regent Caladesi Chapter of Daughters of the American Revolution. We should give you a hand just for that alone. Just for that alone. Such a history. Allow me. National Constitution Week. Whereas September 17, 2023 marks the 236th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. And whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate this occasion. And whereas throughout America's history, in times of turmoil and peace, liberty and oppression, our faith in the Constitution's promise of freedom and democracy has been a steadfast rock of national stability against the raging seas of political change. And whereas, to this day, the Caladesi chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution continues to encourage public awareness of the historical significance of this milestone in our nation's heritage. Now, therefore, I, John Tornga, by the virtue of the authority given to me by the Mayor of the City of Dunedin, Florida, and on behalf of the entire City Commission, do hereby proclaim the period of September 17 through 23rd, 2023, as National Constitution Week in Dunedin, and urge all citizens to join with the Caladesi chapter of Daughters of the American Revolution, along with the DAR chapters across America in honoring and recalling the importance of our rights under the Constitution by public display of our nation's flag during National Constitution Week. Thank you. Now,
Good evening, and thank you, Mayor and City Commissioners, for this proclamation. In 1955, the National Society Daughters of the American Revolution spearheaded an effort to set aside 1 week annually when Americans could celebrate the signing of the Constitution of the United States. On August 2nd, 1956, President Dwight D. Eisenhower designated September 17th through September 23 as Constitution Week and signed it into law. As daughters of the men who fought in the war for independence, we believe there's nothing that embodies the spirit of this great document as perfectly as these 3 simple words: we the people. The Cal DC chapter, NSDAR, encourages our citizens to become better acquainted with our United States Constitution by studying it and reading what our rights are under it. We invite everyone to visit our annual patriotic display at the Dunedin Public Library this month. And Mayor, thank you for helping us promote awareness of our nation's greatest document. We are pleased to present you with a Constitution flag to fly over City Hall September 17 through 23.
Thank you.
wow.
Pass that to Rebecca. You'll make sure somebody puts that up. Thank you, ladies. Appreciate it so much. Thank you. Okay, now's the time for citizen input. This is input on anything that's not already on the agenda. If it's on the agenda, you'll have the appropriate time to talk about something at that time. Come on down, Dave.
Thank you, Mayor. You're welcome. David Ballard Geddes Jr. I live on Georgia Avenue in Palm Harbor. I recently received my proposed property tax, my trim notice from the county. I question the billing structure as it now incorporates 2 separate entitlements. Customarily, the county ad valorem property tax lien is used to pay for services supplied through the county. And as of now, recently, the charge also includes a separate non-ad valorem assessment, which, as translated in statute law, is not a property tax lien, but a third-party property tax levy as a non-ad valorem levy to cover charges labeled as a surface water assessment, stating that a tax certificate to support such surface water levy may result in the loss of the title to my property. Based on statute 180.08, the county already has issued this third party rights to a mortgage certificate, rights to levy against the title to my property, ad hocing surface water charges against the equity of my home to pay for privatized infrastructure schemes on a water crisis that I feel was aggregated deliberately as based on the 14th Amendment, claiming eminent domain development rights against residential property based on statute 15303, section 5. Statute 197.3632 states that this third-party non-ad valorem levy isn't even based on a millage rate and based on statute 298.36 that this third party may charge stormwater levy charges under this law or under any other law, literally creating its own legal structure as my property is being conveyed to a third-party private confidential entity in statute 373.139. Such third-party waterboarding of such is claiming to take all of my rights in statute 170.03, and under such third-party lawmaking, I am appalled at such racketeering in and of the county on their ad valorem billing practice, allowing a third party a transfer of development rights, literally conveying rights to my property and carpetbagging my land. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. You can give it to Rebecca if you like. And to be clear, you're talking about what the county does, not what the city of Dunedin does.
This is the county
Yeah.
ad valorem. Thank you for
Just want to make sure that anybody listening understands that your concerns are with the county and not with the city of Dunedin.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Dave. Anyone else wish to come forward and speak to any item that's not already on the agenda? Yep, come on down. Hi, welcome. Give us your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Jeanette Cornell, and I live at 1858 Douglas Avenue. My husband and I bought our home before COVID. My husband is a 9/11 first responder, and the best retirement gift was finding our house here in Dunedin, a little bit of paradise, where our yard gate opens to the trail. We live on the section of Douglas Avenue that has the wonderful huge dog park at the end of the street. We live where Buena Vista, Douglas, and San Mateo all converge to entrance of Hammock Park. On many sunny days, sitting on our front porch, we watch water come up and out of the storm drains and fill and flood your city street. I'm here tonight to let the City Commission know that the flooding that occurred last week was horrible. Last week's flooding, this time entering our home, had propelled me to do some research. In 2003 and 2020, stormwater master drainage plans were put together by the city. Why didn't our section of Douglas Avenue make the drainage systems improvement list? Both times, both reports, the city staff directed firms they hired to the drainage issues around the city. I could not find in both reports our section of Douglas Avenue listed anywhere, not even in the vulnerability assessment. The storm drain issues and how the man-made watersheds feed into Cedar Creek appear to be mismanaged. Putting Band-Aids on this chronic drainage issue is not working. Where are the backflow prevention devices? The only plan I can see that the city is presently doing for Douglas and San Mateo is a sign that reads "Water over road" on sunny, flooding days. Our section of Douglas Avenue needs you to manage and fix the drainage issues correctly. You can tell us to raise our homes, but on sunny, flooding days, we can't even get to our houses by car or by foot because of the water on our city street. It is in our best interest, my husband and I as taxpayers, that the City of Dunedin expedite a real action plan and fix the defects in the draining systems on our street, nearby retention ponds and Cedar Creek. Thank you to Rob Walker, who came to our street last week, got out of his car and walked it, and listened to our concerns and that of other residents. I also appreciate Bill from Solid Waste, who came to my door and spoke to me regarding the storm debris that is still laying all over Douglas Avenue. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Guys, we're not going to have clapping. Okay, we don't do that. And the reason we don't do it is because if there's somebody here that doesn't agree with you, not on your particular subject, we don't want to make other people feel uncomfortable. But please come forward.
Yeah, I'd like to share these with you.
Sure. Give us your name and address for the record. Give us your name and address for the record.
James Knight, 1888 San Mateo Drive, across from the chapel.
Yep.
Okay, so the day before the flood, and I want to share these with you, we had a king tide on Douglas. That is, these pictures are from
Yeah,
my
we know.
back gate. My pictures are from my rear gate across to my neighbor across the street. This was at 10 in the morning, day before the storm, 8 o'clock in the morning, the day after the storm. That added 3 feet of water to these people's on Douglas. And my next door neighbor got about 6 inches throughout his house. I just barely got a trickle under my doors. My house, as far as I know, historically, has only been flooded once, 1993, the no-name storm. So I did my research on my property. This has been getting worse and worse and worse. If you come around the back of my property, you'll see a slow no wake sign on my fence. That's half a joke. That's just halfly joking because the FedEx trucks leave a wake you can water ski behind.
Yeah, we're very aware of the
And
flooding.
we get that flooding twice a day, and it doesn't come up the street. It comes out of the storm drains above and floods the street downwards. So there's definitely something wrong there. So thank you, and
You can give it to the city clerk.
so the timestamp and everything, the address of the house. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, come on down.
Hi.
Hi.
Thomas Devlin, 1885 San Mateo Drive.
Welcome.
I was also affected by the storm that we had, and I was asking the commission to address the pump at the end of the street where Hammock Park is. I don't know where the power is for it, but at approximately 8 a.m., the city workers came and turned the pump on, and that reseeded the water. If the pump was running, that water would not have entered my house. So I wanted to see, the last time we had a hurricane, there was a generator there for like a backup. This time we had nothing like that. And if we had that running, I believe I know the water wouldn't have came. The water receded all the way up to my driveway and into the house. And I wanted to see if there's something we could do for the next storms, that we have next 2 months of storms coming up, if there's going to address that situation so we won't have to get the house wet and empty the garage, clean things like that, and stop the damage that had happened, because I believe that the power could have went out when the street lights went out around midnight that night.
Okay, we'll find that out. Thank you, sir. Hi, welcome.
My name is Connie Schmidt. I live at 1868 Douglas Avenue. I bought my house 7 years ago and was unaware of the conditions that are going on in Hammock Park. It's my understanding that there's 2 watersheds that are on that property, and as the city fills up, we're obviously getting more water, more residents. I'm assuming that it's being used as a dumping ground to flow the water out. It's continued to rise up the street since I've been there. I basically was waiting for something like this to happen because I'm not familiar with how to address this with the city. My concerns, I had 2 inches of water in my home. I bought this as a retirement home. I live here permanently now, and I would appreciate whatever help that we can get from you guys. You've obviously won awards for handling these types of situations. If we need you to buy more property to facilitate more water, obviously if you push more water, you're going to need more property. It appears to be a problem, and it's coming further and further up the street. There was no water in front of my house when I purchased it. A friend of mine lives at 1868 Douglas. He wasn't able to be here today. He got 8 inches of water in his house. It's a complete gut. So these are very huge concerns for me. Had I known, I'm reluctant to sell my home because I don't want to sell my problem to someone else. I don't know how you're addressing it. I don't know who's on the committee. I'm going to start looking into all of it. I would appreciate some contacts and a committee put together to resolve these issues immediately. We're in the middle of storm things, and I can't have this type of disruption in my life. It causes emotional instability for everyone on the street. And we're all human beings, and we all need to treat each other fairly and make each of us aware of what's going on. Okay, I need quiet enjoyment for my home and for my life and for my neighbors on the street as well. It's a very emotional thing. So if you guys know something or what we need to do, raising these houses is not going to work because you can't get down the street with the water. So I leave it on you to help us manage it however it needs to be, but it needs to be a priority and taken care of. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Good evening.
My name is Amy Wilson. I purchased the property at 1841 Douglas Avenue in March. I have moved into it as of June 10th. It is my only home. It is to be my permanent home. I moved here after the unexpected death of my husband because I came to Dunedin and thought this beautiful little town was where I would like to heal. Last week, my home flooded. There was 17 inches of water in my garage. Thankfully, the rest of my house is already lifted on a crawl space, but the crawl space flooded all the way up to my subfloors. This afternoon, my children are moving me out of my brand new house that I have lived in for 2 months because I cannot be in it while they are ripping out every inch of floor in my house. I also can't be in it because the mold is already growing all over it, and my son, who lives with me, has asthma. I had no idea there was a drainage issue on the street when I bought the house. I did quite a bit of due diligence on this house and had a very thorough inspection before I bought it. There is no record of that home ever having flooded before this storm. I don't know what causes the drainage issue on the street, but it is the city's responsibility. And I'm here basically begging you to give me back my peace of mind. I cannot continue to live in that house if this is going to happen every time there's a storm. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on this particular subject?
I'd like to add some things. On the morning of the hurricane, on the 30th, at 7:31 a.m.
Can you give us our name and address
My
for the
name is
record?
John Shine. I live at 217 Aberdeen Street.
Thank you.
I'm president of the Dunedin Neighborhood Association. At 7:31 a.m., reasonable time, the entire Edgewater Street from well past the Fenway all the way downtown and into the marina was completely flooded, and it was entering at about a foot or two a minute up the street. There wasn't a single emergency responder to be found. When you hired the Pinellas County Sheriff to do emergency services, you did not hand away your responsibility to protect the safety and the emergency services of this city. The Pinellas County Sheriff responded 30 minutes later. Could have been, I don't know how many cars could have been destroyed, how many people, how many homes could have just been destroyed. There was no one to be found at 7:30 in the morning. And you can see evidence of that on Dunedin Discussions because I posted it. I posted the video. I posted everything that is going on here. This city needs to take a look at emergency services. You need to have people who are responsible for this, and you need to have crews and workers beyond the Pinellas County Sheriff who have the ability to place a cone who can take action. It's unreasonable to think that there was no emergency services on a storm that was completely expected. There should have been city trucks there, there should have been emergency services there should have been cones, there should have been the anticipation that the street was shut down. Nothing was done. Nothing. So while these folks lost their homes or got damage to their homes, the entire city was crippled with zero emergency services until the Pinellas County Sheriff showed up. This is your responsibility. You took an oath of office to keep this city safe. Please take actions. We don't need a lazy river and an improved golf course. We need protection against global warming and sea rise. Make some priorities that make sense for our safety of our city. If you simply raise the seawall 2 feet, it would reduce the cost of flood insurance across my entire neighborhood, saving my neighbors millions of dollars. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shine. Anyone else? Please.
Hi, my name is Johnny Ann Sabatini. I live at 1865 San Mateo Drive. I'm here about Hammock Park. the backyards on my area flood on a good rain and a sunny day, which is due to what Jeanette has brought up in the past. I've been there 8 years, and I've seen Douglas flood on a rainy day. It comes down, it used to hit the first house, but now it went all the way up to my driveway. There's definitely an issue. I can't understand also why they don't have a backup generator down at that station that they put in at the end of our street down by the dog park. Also, do you know what the official surge was for this storm?
4 to 7 feet.
Not the guess, what was the official?
4 to 7 feet. It just depends where you were in Pinellas County. 4 to 7 feet. Mhm.
Okay, how many homes are in the overflow that connect to the hammock? Do you know?
I can answer all your questions at the end. We don't do back and forth
okay.
during citizen input, but
Okay. And also, the people on Douglas and San Mateo would like to have a private meeting with one of the commissioners about that situation that is going on there sometime soon. That's what we would appreciate. Okay?
Thank you. Anyone else? Welcome.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Smith. I'm at 1836 Douglas. And I would just like to ask where the sewage came on Douglas. It mixed with the seawater, and my home was filled with sewage. It was all over the street. My pool was filled. I've spent, a number of dollars trying to get this all cleaned out, but something came from Hammock down towards us, and it was filled with sewage. So that's something that we really need to look at.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so let's address a couple of the issues that I heard. Jennifer, I don't know if Jorge is here.
No, Jorge's not, but Sue Bartlett is here. Right.
Okay, so when I get to a point where I don't know how to answer the question, I'll look at you. So maybe you want to come to the table. Okay, so yes, in regards to Mr. Shine's comments about Edgewater Drive and the sheriff at 7:30 in the morning, the sheriff was managing the entire county. We had given a please do not leave your home order, so no one should have been driving through there. And if they were, then they were doing so at their own peril, because we had said we have not gone through the entire city and acknowledged these areas. They were just working on it at 6 o'clock in the morning. So no one should have been driving through there.
Mayor,
yes, ma'am.
May I address that comment in particular? Thank you. So as part of our standard emergency operations, we actually embed public works crews in the fire departments, in the fire stations, along with the fire trucks. So during the course of a storm, we typically have about 100 to 150 employees embedded in different areas in the city watching the storm. I personally was in the EOC all night long with the directors of the operational departments, with a sheriff, deputy from the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office watching the storm. We do have some security cameras around the city, so we're watching in particular the marina, and we're aware of where the water was at that point. Our first push, and I think you've heard me talk about first pushes during some of our Facebook Live, started at about 6 a.m. So as soon as it starts getting light and the winds start to die down a little bit, a fire truck or an emergency response vehicle goes out with our public works crews. And the first thing that we do is ascertain whether or not there are live wires on the roads. And that's a life safety issue. And then we assess the condition of all the roadways as well. So we are out, but it's a very methodical movement through the city. First of all, as I said, to ascertain those life safety issues that are in place, and then the roadways that are flooded. And as we've heard this evening, there were some that were much worse, in a much worse situation than Edgewater Drive, and we addressed those first. Our resources are finite; they most certainly are. But we spread them as much as we can throughout the city to, first of all, as I said, assess exactly where we are with the city, how hard we were hit. It was a storm surge event, it was a water event, not a rain event or a wind event. And so we were very concerned about that storm surge in combination with the king tide. So that's really where we were. We were on the roads, we were out in the field, we were doing damage assessment to public buildings to begin with, public roadways to begin with, and then that afternoon, we actually had boots on the ground. We called in the rest of our employees, and they did damage assessment on the single-family homes that afternoon and the next morning. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. In regards to Douglas San Mateo area, I will say you're not the only neighborhood that's flooded. Baywood Shores flooded terribly. And North Santa Barbara and Buena Vista. No, about 150 homes got flood damage. With 4 to 7 foot storm surge, and there was storm surge all the way down to Fort Myers. There is nothing we could do, nothing. I get that in your particular area it floods. Jeff and I have been down there many, many times. Just ask Tracy Hurst, who lives on your street. And yes, that issue is being worked on, and I'll leave it to the folks to tell you what they're doing. That's the king tide or the tide issues that you have. But the fact that the water came all the way to the street, it wouldn't matter how much we repaired anything. It would still flood. It's a storm surge. There's nothing we can do to control that, which is, excuse me, I was very quiet while you spoke. I'm just asking, for the same respect. You can ask the people at Baywood Shores. They're a low-lying area. There was nothing we could do. We clean out drains on a regular basis. Right before a storm, we went and cleaned out drains. Like I said, there's 150 houses that got damaged, so a lot of other areas got damaged as well. As far as the sewer, what happens when you get storm surge is it overtakes the manholes and the sewer system. It's not that there's something wrong. It happens everywhere. Ask anybody up north that has experienced any of the flooding. There is nothing you can do to cover manholes and stop water from going in if you've got storm surge. That's why storm surge is so dangerous.
Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
May I?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So I did, Commissioner Walker, I think we spoke over the weekend. After he visited you in your subdivision, he was very concerned. I asked staff to put together a briefing paper for me as far as the flooding issues in particular that neighborhood and Baywood Shores as well, which they have done. And I want to go over this, if I may, Mayor, just a little bit, what I have. And then I have Sue Bartlett here. She's a Director of Public Works, and she can fill in what I miss. You're actually a subject matter expert much more than I am, but we do have others who are even more expert than we are. But before I say that, Mayor, I was going to save this to the end of the meeting, but I think it's best to say it now. First of all, I sympathize. I think about you all the time and what you're going through. We do have boots on the ground again tomorrow. Our employees will be in your subdivision again tomorrow. We are going to start our debris removal on Monday. So you'll start seeing, they're very big trucks, so we're going to, the information that we're pushing out is that we need the vehicles off the roadway because they're claw trucks and they're huge. We're going to go through Baywood Shores. We're going to go through your neighborhoods as well to collect that debris. We're putting a flyer out tomorrow. We'll have additional information on help you can get from FEMA on some of the short-term rental vouchers and hotels where you can get discounts and those types of things for the woman that's moving out of her home today. And so there are lots of resources from FEMA. We didn't become FEMA eligible, believe it or not, until Sunday evening. And what FEMA eligible means is that they're going to help us, and they're going to help you individually. We didn't have that approval. And it actually took county inspectors and city inspectors, one of our district chiefs, driving through your neighborhood with FEMA to show them, here's the damage, and then we became eligible. So that's good news. We spent all week long getting the contractors under contract, if you will, and it has to be monitored carefully so that we will be reimbursed. We still have to be fiscally responsible to all of our taxpayers. It's going to cost the city about $300,000, and so we should be reimbursed by FEMA those funds, most of those funds. There might be some that are not going to be reimbursed. So as far as this briefing paper went, we do have experts on staff. We have a former director or assistant director, I think, for the Southwest Florida Water Management District. He's an engineer. He used to work for the city, he's now a consultant. He has retired. And we also have a stormwater program coordinator, Michelle Monteclaro, and we have an employee dedicated to stormwater and managing stormwater. So the problem in your area is the tidal influence. It's not the rainwater, it's the tidal influence, and that's how we need to treat it. Those ponds there are for water quality, they're not for storage, believe it or not. That's how they were originally designed. So the North Douglas Pond is a stormwater facility with a tidal influence, and as you know, it's located adjacent to Cedar Creek. So we did do a pond restoration. You saw some equipment in there, and what we did was, it was recently completed, and the intent of that work was to bring the pond into compliance with the permit, the original permit that was issued. It was required, we had to kind of reconstruct it to its original storage capacity, which didn't increase the storage capacity in that area. It's how the permit was issued. As far as the storm volumes go there. We replaced an aluminum weir. We found a concrete weir, which we essentially removed the silt, if you will, and then we restored the banks as well in the weir to help us with the capacity. And still, the issue was the tidal influence on that area, as the mayor said. So what you want to know is what we're doing about it, right? Yeah, I would too. So the stormwater, we do have a stormwater rate study underway, and what we're doing is we're doing a vulnerability assessment as part of that stormwater study. And so we're looking at other areas as well. We're looking at Baywood Shores, which, as the mayor said, was hit as hard as, or harder, if you can believe that in your area. I know that's hard to believe, but anyway, and all the other vulnerable areas. And the goal of the assessment is to there are going to be additional studies on how it is, especially in your area, we can manage that tidal influence, because you can pump it in, but then it's got to go somewhere. It can't go back out again. So we've got to study that issue, and we've got to analyze the volume and arrive at conclusions for managing that storm water. So, or any improvements that we need to make in the area. Unfortunately, I know it's not what you want to hear, but that is going to take some time. And so we're on it. We're watching the area. We are aware of the flooding in the area. I think all of you know Keith Fogarty, probably, those who've lived there for a while. The original restoration of that area was a result of the flooding from last year and the years prior. We're looking at whatever solution that we can, and it is part of our stormwater rate assessment along with other vulnerable areas. I'm going to ask Sue if you want to add anything, Sue?
I would just say that we do care, we are listening. We wish we could just stop it, but if we could just put a plug in that pipe, it still wouldn't stop it. It's coming in from 3 different places, the tidal influence. And we are making sure that the stormwater systems there are functioning properly so it doesn't compound the problem. And it will take some time, but one of the advantages of applying for these assessments is when we have it and it's in front of us, it'll make us eligible for some of the funding, because these are just huge solutions that need to be considered. And we do have a list of things to consider. We have included those in our stormwater study. We want to make sure we're doing the right thing in the right place. So we do empathize with you, and I'm sorry that your homes are flooded. All of Dunedin, anyone who had that happen. We did hear today on our call with the emergency management, Pinellas County, that FEMA actually, and this was actually on your street, that they actually, if you register for that personal assistance online, they have responded immediately to the area, and they came to someone on your street and then actually had them vacate the property and provided advice and places to go. There are vouchers available for those who are economically challenged, and those Pinellas County resources are available. They have been just emphasizing they're going to open us registration in Palm Harbor. I don't have the exact location, but as soon as we do, we will post that. And they are looking for others locations to set up. They have St. Pete, but Palm Harbor's pretty close. But it just encourage you to apply for that because it makes you eligible. Again, right now in this period, it's 100% reimbursement for individual assistance. and they're here, and they care, and they've been coming right to the homes, Baywood and on Douglas.
Sue, do we have that in the flyer?
It's the information, the link
That
is
we're
in the
gonna hand out
flyer.
tomorrow, yeah.
Right, yes.
Sue, can you please, there was a mention of the generator and the pump, and can you talk about the pump and how that all works?
Sure, and that is actually sanitary sewer, which is Nan Bennett's, but I did check with her, that's what I was texting, I was listening still, but I wanted to know if she had any update, and I sat beside her in the EOC, and we didn't have any reported loss of sanitary pumps. We were watching them to see, did we need to turn them off? The pump at the end lost a phase of power. It's a 3-phase. So in the morning, and they went out and they did have to manually start it, but it was not in a high warning level. We have these warning levels for how high the water gets. So there was no spill from that pump or from anyone that's in Dunedin.
Yes, so it was a generator attached to a lift station, which pumps the sanitary sewer down to our wastewater treatment plant. So that's the generator that you heard.
Yes.
No, he's saying when they did the pump, that's when the water receded, when they got it started.
So when, this is a problem for sanitary all over the city, so that's why we're watching the levels too. When there's so much tidal influence, it inundates the sanitary system, backs up into the plant, and then we have a lot of problems. So we shut down lift stations. This is something we've never had to experience here, and I've lived in Pinellas County most of my life, where we didn't have, but that is always on our emergency plans. It's something we dread doing, but we did not have that situation. We did not turn off any pumps. So what happens is so much water comes into that pump and into the system, it comes and it backs up into sanitary. It starts backing up into your homes, and that is the indicator that we have all that salt water going into our pumps. So in this case, it did not do that.
Right, so as a gentleman and the mayor was referring to, though, it was a generator pumping water out of that area. We'll need to check on that, if we did that last year. I don't recall.
He's saying it happened today, or this.
That we pumped water out?
He's saying that we,
Okay, so they turned the pump on. It's the lift station.
Okay, because the sanitary sewer. Got it.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, that's what they did.
okay. Yeah, okay. We're not, so that's the point.
Yes.
That's what his question was.
That-
Why wasn't the pump already on?
It lost a phase of power.
It lost the phase of power.
And why wasn't there a generator? That's the question.
Yeah, I don't have that answer. Yeah.
We actually have a limited number of generators. We have generators attached to lift stations. We do the smaller ones, we have to move them around at times. So, and you will see that. You will see crews moving generators around to lift stations. So I'll have to check on that and find out exactly what happened to that generator in that area.
Okay. We're not going to do this back and forth, but what I do suggest is you've got name and addresses there, Rebecca? Okay. You know, the meeting that they're asking for, I think that's a meeting between Jennifer, you, and Sue, and Jorge, and our stormwater people that can specifically speak to their particular situation, because what might apply to this area doesn't necessarily apply to Baywood Shores. They also get tidal flooding. It comes right over their seawall, and they have a seawall, and it comes right over. It's a low-lying area that has been known for flooding for decades and decades, and people who buy in there know that. So anyway, hopefully with a list of names and addresses, I know it's not emails, but I don't know if maybe you can grab somebody and maybe get some emails from people. Hang on just a second, please. Maybe you can get some, yeah, maybe you can go with them and get those emails. All right, and then Jennifer, you can send something out.
Absolutely.
That'd be great. And then just, you know, as Jennifer said, even though I'm trying to maintain an order because I'm required to do so, I'm not trying to be a jerk here, I promise you. Jennifer and I drove around 10:30 in the morning of the storm. We went through all the neighborhoods that without driving through water, but we went through them all, and it was, I've lived here 53 years. And trust me, when you're 20s and 30s and they tell you don't go out after a storm until they tell you, you go. So I would have been on Edgewater Drive myself, John. I was shocked. You know, when I tell Jennifer I've never seen anything like this, after 53 years of living here, that's saying a lot. We drove right past Douglas. We drove towards Hammock as far as we could go without it, you know, going into the floodwaters. We saw exactly what your neighborhood looked like. Baywood Shores, you couldn't even get in it. I mean, the water was already starting to recede, and it was just off of Alt 19 on all entry points, and all the way down, even Michigan west across Alt 19 and so forth. The causeway, the water, it was even receding around 11 o'clock. But the water was all the way up to the road. There was no beach. You couldn't see a beach. Never seen anything like that before in all the years I've lived here. It was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking, and I can't even imagine how you all felt watching it happen to your own home. So we are terribly, terribly sorry that you all have gone through this, and we do want to help you. I think if Rebecca can get your emails, we will try to set up a few at least regularly scheduled meetings, get you the information you need, and try to figure out what we need to do. Like I said, on a storm surge like that, there is nothing we can do. On the tidal stuff that's happening in your neighborhood, that should not be happening, and we should be able to do something. I just don't know what. I don't have that expertise, but we do have experts on staff that will try to figure it out. So thank you guys for coming, and thank you guys for sharing in your pain with us. We appreciate it. We really do. Rebecca, will you go join them? And she'll meet you guys outside, or outside of there. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Next on our agenda is action items, and we have the first reading of ordinance 23-05, third amended Fenway Hotel Development Agreement. Jennifer, can you please read ordinance 2305 by title only?
Sue.
Certainly. Ordinance 2305, an ordinance of the City of Dunedin, Florida, approving and authorizing execution of the third amended Fenway Hotel Development Agreement between the City of Dunedin and the Taoist Tai Chi Society of the United States of America, Inc., as successors by merger to TTCS-USA Title Holding Corporation and Mainsail Fenway Hotel LLLP, repealing any conflicting ordinances or parts thereof and providing for an effective date. That was ordinance 2305, read by title only.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve?
Second.
Commissioner Franny and Commissioner Gao. Thank you. Okay. Jennifer, you have some opening remarks?
I do, and here's fair warning, Joey, I'm about to steal one of your slides, sorry.
Just tell me which one, I'm happy to.
All right, you'll recognize it when you see it. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of an overview, especially Commissioner Walker, who's not with us right now, but maybe he's listening, just because this is really a long way underway prior to, even my tenure here. So I'm just going to go back to the very beginning and then move through to where we are today, if that's okay?
Sure.
To remind you of all that has occurred. So on March 15th of 2015, Ordinance 1506 was approved, and that was the execution of the Fenway Hotel Development Agreement for the City Commission. So that was a really big day, I think, for the Fenway, certainly, in the city of Dunedin, where the old empty building was going to really grow up and become something. So that has been amended actually twice since that time, that original development agreement. And the first amendment was approved on June 15th of 2015, and that was Ordinance 1706, and that amendment spoke to the architectural style of buildings C and E. Apparently, the city lifted a single-site overlay district in that area, and then there were going to be some renovations to those two buildings. So there was a lot of discussion about architectural style of those two buildings. And that's really all that I saw in that amendment. I don't know if anybody else remembers if there's anything else there. It wasn't a very large amendment to the original agreement. The second amendment was approved by the City Commission on May 17th of 2018. And that one actually was to provide for a house on the corner of Lyndhurst and Broadway. I don't know if you recall that one, because we talked about that a lot in terms of the architectural style of the main structure, and added a swimming pool, because a hotel has to have a swimming pool, so the swimming pool wasn't originally envisioned. And then that amendment requested a new completion date for the hotel, and enter Mainsail as well, had entered the fray as partners with the Taoist Tai Chi, and then there was a sale of the property eventually. So that brings us to the third amended hotel development agreement. In October of 2019, the City Commission had requested that staff provide a kind of an update on the parking around Fenway. There had been lots of complaints in the neighborhood. So during the course of that parking plan update, we started getting into the number of spaces, the number of events, and that type of a thing. And at that point, I requested that the City Commission just table that subject and allow us to work with Fenway and bring back a formal development agreement, which had a more thorough which would more thoroughly address, if you will, the parking in and around Fenway. And so that occurred, and that was October 15th of 2019. Other noteworthy events then, on June 24th, the City Commission approved the 15 residential parking permits for Fenway. I think it was 14 or 15. Now that, you know, although some folks may call that into question, it was approved by the City Commission on that date. So that's not really the subject of this particular agreement. It was kind of a separate action that the City Commission took. So, and then we know what happened in 2020, and so that was COVID. I know that Fenway was struggling, if you will, a little bit like all hotels, and the neighborhood was quiet because there were no events and there were very few guests at the hotel. So we kind of sat on that. We talked back and forth a little bit every now and then and try to make it through the pandemic. Then February 21st of 2023, the payment was made to begin the third amendment, negotiations on the third amendment. You know, previously in 2019, we were talking about adding a dock, and we were talking about cost sharing, and that type of thing. That's not subject to this agreement. That kind of fell by the wayside, and plans went in a different direction. So we entered into negotiations, and then it was seen before the LPA on May 10th. And the LPA forwarded a recommendation of support to the City Commission. And then we received direct mail queries, if you will, public records requests and that type of things. Residents were really concerned about the number of events. They were concerned about parking and traffic circulation in the area. They were concerned about noise. They were concerned about, you know, some of the impacts. And so I asked the City Commission if you would allow us to table the item. Well, we met amongst ourselves as staff, and as we met with Mainsail to see what it was we could address of their concerns. And I think that we have. I think that, you know, Mainsail has worked well with us. Taoist Tai Chi has also partnered, and we're very grateful for their offer of additional parking in the area. And I think we've addressed a lot of these questions, and Joey's going to get into that a little bit more in a moment. One thing before I hand this over to Joey, if I may, Mayor, there was a question on notice in regards to the development agreement. And so two things. First of all, the development agreement, the third amendment to the development agreement, was adequately noticed. So the notice requirements are a letter which has to be dated 14 days prior to the date of the public hearing of the City Commission. It's a publication in a newspaper of general circulation 14 days prior to the LPA and 7 days prior to the City Commission public hearing. And then it's a posted notice on the property. And I do have evidence that all of those notice requirements have been met. There was another query about a different section of the code that required a 30-day notice to affected parties, and I'm going to have our attorney, if I may, Mayor, answer that
Sure.
query.
Sure. Yes. That query was brought up based on the table that you have in your notice provisions. And in the table of your notice provisions, there are several places where there are asterisks or a double asterisk, or even, it's called a limiscant. It's a 8 turned sideways. And In particular, when there is that 8-turn sideways, there is a 30-day provision, but that requirement and that symbol is not under the development agreement requirements, and so it's not something that is provided either in statute or by your code for this particular type of agreement.
So, Mayor, given that we've reviewed the notice and the question regarding notice, we're comfortable with moving forward this evening with this item.
Okay, Joey, before you, Jennifer just went over this slide, so you're probably on the next one.
Absolutely.
Jennifer, at what point do you want to go over, you gave us a list of, because the residents, when we were going to talk about this in June, I believe it was June, right? There were any number of emails and a list of concerns, and you gave us in our staffing those list of concerns and what is addressing it. How will that be done tonight?
I think Joey's going to go over those tonight.
You're going to go over those list
will.
of concerns? Okay,
will.
thank you, Joy.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
No, so are you saying this notice actually went to each?
Yes, yes.
I just want to make sure I heard that.
No, but the concern that was expressed was that it was supposed to be 30 days versus the number of days.
Right,
and
right.
that-
It was a different concern, but I just, you know, when we get a concern like that, then we look all the way through every notice requirement to make sure
Right,
we hit it all, and we
just to
did.
make sure we
Right.
hit.
Yes.
But our city attorney is confident that we followed the letter of the law.
Well,
Yes, that you follow the notice requirements within
Thank you.
your code and the statute.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. I just want to make sure that that went to everybody, because that follows the spirit of the law, which
Sure.
is what I'm interested in.
Sure. Okay. Joy?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. Joseph DePasqua on behalf of the Community Development Department. And I thank the city manager for going over the timeline, so I'll certainly skip that part. But for the subject of the development agreement amendment we're talking about this evening, essentially you have 4 elements that have been amended that are part of this amendment. 4 sections of amendment. And so the first one, and of course, as Jennifer mentioned, we've met since the June 8th tabling of this item to talk to both internally and with the members, representative of Mainsail, to try to address the issues as they were brought up. So this latest amendment, specifically in section 19, and more specifically in 4 subparagraphs H, I, J, and K, are the sections that we're talking about. The first one revolves around the monument sign. The second one is about a shade tent. The third one is actually 2 parts. It's a major special event tent out in front of the property and a parking plan. And the other section is about event hours. So I'll take them one at a time if you'll allow me. The first one is the monument sign. The monument sign that is being proposed is provided in Exhibit D and E in the actual agreement itself. The proposed monument sign will be located at the northwest corner of the property. It's at the corner of Edgewater Drive and Lyndhurst. Its proposed location is set back 10 feet from both the north and west property lines. This location is outside the 30-foot visibility triangle and the 14.5-foot FDOT limit of clear sight at the intersection. I know there was questions about the sign location being potentially a safety concern. And of course, this is always looked at during our permitting system, but for the purpose of this exercise, we wanted to make it very clear that it is being addressed up front as part of the amendment. And the new monument sign being proposed is 16 feet wide, is 6 feet tall. It's double-sided, installed perpendicular to Edgewater Drive. That was something that came up during the LPA. It originally showed it parallel, which was a mistake. It is always meant to be perpendicular. The sign lighting itself will be softly backlit and on a timer, so the lighting will turn off at 11 o'clock. So what you have to the right here is an exhibit where I tried to provide some visual representation of where the sign's going to be approximately, and then how that 30-foot visibility triangle works, which is the red triangle there. That's 30 feet measured back from the intersection. And you create that triangle, and you do not want a sign in that triangle. And then DOT uses what's called a limit of clear sight. And so you come back from the edge of pavement 14.5 feet, and then you do sight lines back north, in this case north and south. And as you can see from the proposed location, that the sign is outside, well outside of both of those dimensional standards. So the location as proposed would comport with our code and be in a safe location. This is the rendering that is provided in the backup, as you can see, of the monument sign. It's in the same architectural style as the building. It is 16 feet in length. You can see it has 3 essential segments, and it is at its highest, it's 6 feet high. And you can see they're proposing some landscaping there, kind of giving you an idea what it would look like. It's just under 32 square feet of sign per side. The second area of the amendment, element of the amendment, is the shade tent, and this is the tent by the pool area. This is proposed to be a 20 by 50-foot shade tent. It's located at the rear of the hotel by the pool and behind a fence in front of the parking area. This approval would expire in 2 years unless extended by the city manager, and this is to give Mainsail sufficient time to construct a more permanent shade structure. And so what I've done is I've taken a snippet out of that exhibit it's part of the agreement, and I've outlined the area where the shade tent would be. This is just a more accurate, when you look at an aerial, line drawings tend to confuse people, so I went ahead and just did an aerial. And you can see this is where the shade tent is proposed to be. I believe they've had it up and down since the discussions have been going on, but you can see it's just to the east of the pool in front of that field of parking to the east.
So for the benefit of everybody, in other words, that we understand that this is a temporary structure and that Mainsail is going to build a permanent structure.
That's the intent.
And we're giving
yes.
them the time to do that.
Yes, that's the
Okay,
intent.
thank you.
Within that 2 years.
Yeah.
Yes. The next item of discussion is the major special event tent. This has to do with parking as well, but I'm going to take them one at a time here. In that the major special event tent will go in the front lawn, generally as depicted here. And I've, again, snipped a portion out of there, enlarged it so everyone can see where the tent would propose to go. A permit was required each and every time a tent is installed. The permit may include conditions such as direction of external speakers, staff for directing traffic, and other reasonable conditions by staff. And each one of these are typically reviewed not only by community development, but as any tent permit, it was reviewed by fire, it's reviewed by zoning, and then it's also, in this case, reviewed by the city manager's office. And we've been doing that now for quite some time. And the second part of the major tent is the parking plan. And this, the agreement does call for Mainsail to have 70 spaces at a minimum for an event that involves either 100 or more people or involves the installation of a tent. A 10-day notice is required under the agreement to activate the parking plan when you're going to have a major event. The parking is being provided through a combination of, and I'll give you the numbers, 14 off-street valet driveway spaces. I'm going to get into a drawing that I provided as well on the next slide, so you can see where these will all be located. In addition to those 14 off-street valet driveway spaces, there's 15 off-street residential parking permit spaces, the ones that the city manager mentioned, that were granted by the City Commission in 2019. And up to 66 off-site spaces through the amended agreement or the updated agreement with the Dowis for a total of 95 spaces. The updated agreement between Mainsail and the Dowis, of course, was provided in your backup. And Mainsail must also engage a Pinellas County Sheriff's officer or officers to provide crowd control for any event involving 175 or more people. Here are the parking counts for the site, so everybody's clear how we're arriving at a total number. The first thing I will do is point out that you'll see the property lines separating the Dowis property from the Mainsail property. And I've color-coded the parking. You can see the 14 valet spaces run along the driveway coming in off of Lyndhurst and Lockley and running through the porte cochere. And so those are those 14 spaces. Down in the lower left-hand, down in the lower left-hand corner, the 15 parking permit spaces, of course, are going to be provided throughout the neighborhood along the streets, but I just wanted to identify those 15 spaces. The blue has spaces or 3 different parking fields on the property. These are on-site spaces. They total 84 on-site spaces. And then finally, the spaces through the agreement that are available for special events or major events which is the two areas. There's 46 spaces available in the area to the east, but south along Lockley Street. And then there are 20 spaces available at the corner of Broadway and Lyndhurst, for a total of 66 under the agreement. So that would bring a total available parking with all the options available to them of 179 spaces. And then the last part of the amendment has to do with event hours, and Mainsail has agreed under the amended agreement to stop all external music by no later than 10 p.m. on Sundays. And before I move any further, I'd like to cover those concerns, if I could.
Sure.
That were expressed by residents and as well as our Edgewater Drive Advisory Committee. And you were provided this, of course, in your backup. So the first one was for Mainsail to provide traffic flow assistance for larger events. And as I mentioned, in Section J, the permit may include conditions such as direction of external speakers, Fenway staff for directing traffic, and other reasonable conditions. And also, as I mentioned, when there is an event involving 175 people or more, they must engage Pinellas County Sheriff's deputies. The next comment or concern expressed was about the music beyond 10 o'clock, and as I mentioned, they've agreed, and it's part of the agreement, that music will stop, external music will stop by 10 p.m. on Sundays, so that condition was satisfied. Mainsail to work with clients to mitigate noise. The Fenway has agreed, and I think you were provided with this. They've agreed that the hotel will utilize decibel meters and other sound mitigation measures where possible to assure compliance with noise levels. And external speakers for DJs, live music, et cetera, will be positioned facing the water and away from the neighborhood and hotel. And then, of course, Section J is always in play because it's part of the agreement. That's Section J I mentioned earlier. The next comment had to do with Mainsail to increase security and be available to address concerns. And they have agreed that the hotel will take a more active approach with reporting illegal parking vehicles and have staff patrol and direct traffic for larger events. And we've discussed that here as well. That's part of the agreement and could be a reasonable condition to a permit. The monument sign, I mentioned that the original exhibit did have the sign showing parallel to Edgewater Drive, and it was meant to be perpendicular. It is. The off-site parking agreement, Fenway and the Taoists have a modified agreement that was provided that allows year-round use, and the agreement also expands the available parking to 66 spaces. And there, again, there's a total of 179 available with those 66 spaces. There was a question about a tent permit being required. A tent permit is already a requirement of the development agreement and before the installation of that major tent event on the front lawn. Emergency service obstructions, again, the development agreement already specifically requires and identified the valet parking, was reviewed by the fire department, and they found no conflicts with that parking plan. There was a question about having a finite number of the front lawn tent events or the major tent events, and to limit the size of the tent, and that is to be proposed to be managed through the permit process. Again, each time a tent is required or requested, there's a permit required. And then the last comment had to do with fire tent inspection, and that's going to be, of course, managed through the permitting process as well. The fire department comments on all tent applications regarding occupancy and safety. So those were the concerns that were expressed and how each one was addressed or integrated into the agreement, the amendment. With that, again, to repeat what the city manager said, on May 10th, your local planning agency unanimously recommended approval with the condition that that sign be shown properly on the Exhibit D, which that has been, as I mentioned before, has been corrected. So they recommended approval to the City Commission, and staff is also recommending approval of Ordinance 2305 and the third amended Fenway Hotel Development Agreement by the City Commission. With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, Jennifer, any closing remarks to that?
I don't, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Questions? Any questions?
I have no questions. I spent time with the city manager going over
Okay.
just recently.
Jeff, any questions?
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Uh-huh.
And Joey, thank you for the conversation about the sign. I don't know about anybody else, but I know I was the one that had some concerns over the safety.
Absolutely.
And the placement. And I understand the visibility triangle, and I see where it's placed outside. My concern was both for Lockley and for Lyndhurst. And just because Edgewater's a narrow road, it's fairly straight right there, but it's got a curve right there on the north end of it. And so I'm just wondering, even if it's just for me, if Fenway would put up plywood size, what the sign would be, just plant it in the ground, and then stopping at the stop line on both Lyndhurst and Lockley, just to make sure that the sight line is there. I'd hate, because that's a beautiful sign. I'm sure it's going to be expensive, and I don't want them to put it up, and then all of a sudden we have residents or even anybody in the city or tourists have a concern over the sight line there, because I just don't want an accident happen there. So I don't know whether they would be amenable. I don't know that it needs to be in a contract or in writing, but even a gentleman's agreement that will do that to make sure that the residents and visitors of Dunedin are safe would be wonderful. And still on the sign, just to confirm that lighting for that sign, is that backlit lighting?
Yes.
Okay, and so we're good on the environmental aspect of it, and we won't angry the sea turtle population.
And it's on a timer, and I will add that it's again, I understand your exhibits are a little difficult to read in your backup, but it's also noted on the exhibit, which will become part of the agreement, that it will turn off at 11.
Okay.
So it's not just a statement, it's actually part of the approved drawing.
Okay, and then back to the safety issue, and also just to reiterate, Lockley as well, because that sign is nowhere near Lockley, but that doesn't mean the sight line isn't impacted there, which may not be part of the calculation and design on the way you saw it. The shade tent by the pool, I did see it's going to be the permanent structure, 20 by 50. I didn't see a height on it. Is there a height to that?
There's no height noted in the plan, just the dimension of the shade tent, until they could do something more permanent. And so a permanent structure would presumably come in within that 2-year period.
Right.
That would require a building permit.
Okay, so we'll see that later.
I believe that would require another amendment to the development agreement, because again, that's a final design change.
Okay, very good.
I would look to the city attorney to see if I'm misinterpreting that, but.
No, if it's changing the final design, it would require it.
Yeah. So the permanent structure would, to answer your question directly, the permanent structure would come back as part of another amendment.
Okay. And then the entertainment tent out front, and it could have been in the staffing and I didn't see it, but this is going to end up being an every weekend thing, most likely. I have a concern over that. But is there, but I don't want it there so frequently, then it might as well be permanent.
Hang on just a minute, Commissioner. Can we, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but we can continue to hear you talking while we're trying to talk. It's okay. It echoes, the ceiling echoes. It does. No, don't worry about it. Okay, go ahead, Commissioner.
I wish it echoed for me, because I get yelled at all the time that I can't be heard on microphone. But yeah, Joe, was there timeframes in the agreement for that tent out front to where we won't see it on Tuesday, it gets taken down on Wednesday, and Thursday it's back up for another event, so that it might as well, for all intents and purposes, be a permanent structure? Yeah. Was there anything in there to kind of protect the residents?
So the number of tents, let's say throughout the calendar year, and the size is not specifically called out. So that'll be handled through the permitting process, which would include the city manager, and of course applying the agreement once executed each time. So the city would have the ability each time to look at a tent event and determine approval as well as reasonable conditions.
Okay. Is that a good place for the city to be in? And I understand we want some flexibility, but now it's going to be contingent on the city saying, well, no, it's getting a little too frequent, so we're going to, how about not this weekend? And is that a position we want the city in, or should there be something a little more permanent in the agreement that kind of gives the residents that peace of mind?
I think from a staff perspective, we were comfortable with what's being proposed, that we would I want to say, we would regulate that through our permitting process.
Jennifer, do you want to respond to that? Because I know you're the one that's
Well,
looking at
yeah,
this
and we
stuff.
actually did discuss that, and I think that Mr. Collier probably has something to add to that. But as far as limiting the number of events, and we really haven't experienced that issue at this point in terms of the number of events. They're typically for weddings. They're typically for, well, weddings. I mean, it's become a wedding venue at this point. So I'm comfortable with where we are. We did discuss it with Mainsail. They were not receptive to that either. So I would defer to Joe as far as if he would be willing to limit the number, but I'm actually very comfortable with where we are right now.
Okay, and I may be comfortable as well, but I don't know whether I'll be comfortable 10 years from now, right? And if there's nothing really in place that sets the guidelines, then I'd rather be in a position of working with Mainsail on expanding the agreements in the future as opposed to having to claw back because we think that they've overreached or all of a sudden our residents are really up in arms because it's permanent structures. That's my concern. I don't know if it's worth going back and redoing this again, but I think it really is a valid concern.
If I may, Mayor, I'm sorry. I'd like to hear from Mr. Collier, but I do have an idea, but if we could get the questions and then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just going to suggest.
And that was the end of my questions. That was my concern.
I was also going to suggest that, given the fact that Mainsail has to come back for their back tent, the pool tent, shade structure, there'll be another opportunity. It'll be open again. So Jennifer could tell us if there's a problem
And it's just
at that time.
The management of Mainsail is wonderful today working with us, but that management is also going to change. And if that, all of a sudden, that management gets a little more aggressive, a little more assertive on their sales and revenue, that all of a sudden, we're in a position we don't want to be in, where if we manage it up front, we might not be there. So, but anyway, thank you, Joey.
You're welcome.
Any questions?
And maybe some of these Joe will end up answering. I mean, I think it's a really great point, Commissioner Gao, and, because my question, and you can answer it later, along with that thing, but along that vein, so we're 6 months in or something, and all of a sudden, we're all like, the neighbors are like, this is insane. I mean, it's just never down, it's always up. Like, can we just say, nope, not going to do any more permits, come back to the table? I guess that's my question. So do we have that kind of control? If it does get like, this is insane, we need to talk. What's our control base? And
let her answer the question. Answer
Well,
that question.
I think.
Are you
if
shaking
wanted-
your head yes?
I think you wanted to answer that later, or?
Yeah, I'd like to hear from Mr. Collier, and
Yeah.
then I'd like to circle back, because like, as I said, I do have an idea. Yeah.
And this may be for Joe as well, right now, what are the typical number of events a year? And what's the typical high and low average number of people that come to the events? Like, how often are you going to have, what's the high side? And what's the low side, and what's the average number of people that we really have? I think, if I'm in the neighborhood, that would matter to me. Like, are all the events 300 people? Which I know they're not, but I'm just saying, those kinds of numbers would matter to me. So, Joey, the tent is it a maximum size tent, or is it just whatever's in the exhibit? The tent must fit within that part of the exhibit, that spacing?
Yeah, there's not a maximum dimensional size for the for the tent itself, but it needs to be generally located where you see on that exhibit. So that's what we'd be looking at through the permitting process.
For the permitting process, okay. And then I guess the question, this may be a Joe question as well, I noticed this additional 66 spaces is kind of if they're available. So there's an event going on with the Taoists, and you got a big wedding coming in, and they're not available. So then what's the backup plan to that? That would be my other question. I think those are my main ones.
I think, can I answer that question, Mayor? If that were the case, first of all, when they submit the tent, they're going to have to show us that the parking is available. And that would be part of the permit. And if there's another event and the parking's not available, we won't issue the permit.
Okay, so you come up with a backup plan, or okay, gotcha. Makes sense?
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Walker, questions?
Yes, questions. So obviously, the proposed amendment, in addition to addressing the sign, the shade tent, the event tent, and the parking, basically that stuff gets covered under the amendment. As a result of this process, though, there were a lot of other concerns that were brought up, and I just want to ask a few questions about those. First of all, I see that there is going to be steps in terms of noise enforcement. Is that to imply that it wasn't routinely abated, or the noise, that they weren't taking these steps on decibel meters and directional speakers and that kind of thing in the past?
I don't think we've received any formal noise complaints, but we did hear from both residents and affected neighborhood that noise was something that was a concern. And again, that's why we sat with with Mr. Collier and tried to come up with, and I think he met with the Edgewater Drive Advisory Committee and tried to come up with ways to address those concerns.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I also appreciate the fact that Mainsail is working with us to make sure that these get addressed. That's the important thing, because the other part that concerns me is just the participant, the crowd enforcement essentially by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, and then the mention that the hotel will take a more proactive role in ensuring that this gets enforced. Again, the question back is that to imply that it wasn't routinely done in the past? And I think we need to address that, because if we're going to say we're going to take these steps, then that's what we got to do. Any thoughts on that?
I would kind of stick to what I said before, but I'm not aware of any noise violations, or we've had issues where the sheriff's come out there and issued citations. However, I know that's been a concern.
Yep.
And because of those expressed concerns and Mr. Collier's, I think, willingness to want to deal with it, we're making sure that it's in this agreement, that these things will be part of the agreement.
Okay, good. And then the final, this is a quick one. We mentioned the curfew on Sundays, 10 o'clock. What would it typically be on weekday, Saturday, Friday?
It's 11 o'clock is our...
11 o'clock,
yes.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner. So I'd just like to go over the whole event with 175 or more. What are we doing with that? Just re-explain that.
So it would be the same scenario that you'd have in any other time you put up a tent or have 100 or more people, except
100 or more, but you're saying 175.
Except if it's 175 or more, it's mandatory that the sheriff's office be involved in traffic control and crowd control.
But an extra 100, it isn't? Like, how do we come up with that number?
So it was in talking to both internally and with the applicant, there was a belief that once you get to a certain size, you're going to need, and 175 seemed like a number that made sense to both sides, if you will. There's no magic to it, to be quite honest, but it seemed like a reasonable number, that if you had that number of people, that you would need some measure of control from the sheriff's office. And so that's why it was placed when you have an event that is 175 or more.
Yeah, I'd like to understand how many people are standard under that tent. The only reason I'm even asking, because I think you guys have done a great job addressing everybody's concerns. So I don't want to nitpick what you all have done at all. And I appreciate it, and I appreciate Mr. Collier's willingness.
Thank you, Mayor.
The only thing I remember consistently with all the emails we got back in June was, the traffic on both streets, trucks trying to come down, delivery trucks, or people coming down to do the sunset, people going to the upstairs bar, and then people coming to the tent, that it was complete chaos. It may have only been 100 people under that tent, but it would have needed, sheriff's guidance and sheriff's monitoring or somebody's monitoring. So to me, if you're doing the tent on the outside, it's because the inside's too small for the event. And I know what the inside has. I've been to plenty of events at the Fenway. So I'm guessing that's like 80 or 100 max. So, anything under the tent's going to be more than that. And then plus you're going to have all the people that are already there. So I'm just a little concerned that 175 is the mark versus something else. But there was no particular reason why you guys came to that. That was just an agreement.
Yeah, I think it was
I know what negotiations are.
It was a negotiated agreement.
Yeah, everybody walks away unhappy.
And
Isn't that what they say about negotiations?
The best negotiation.
But for each event, and
If it's a good agreement.
Mayor, I understand completely what you're saying, but for each event, there can be reasonable conditions placed on, and including staff doing traffic control. And so those things can happen with any event that invokes 100 people or more, or
Yeah.
involves a tent. So there is, it's not like nothing until 175 is I would point out,
No,
that
I
we have some ability.
I understand that too.
But I get what you're saying.
I get
We're already, if I may, Mayor, and to some extent, we're already doing that just in terms of when the permit comes in through community development and it's reviewed by all the separate entities and then comes up to the city manager's office. If it's a larger event, where's the parking? What's the parking plan? And I think as far as the sheriff's deputy goes, we chatted back and forth a little bit when we were negotiating in terms of it can't be a security guard. It has to be sheriff's deputy. And the reason for that is that at any given time, they could call for additional, help in that area if they see that there's an issue. And plus, also, they have their decibel readers. And I thought that was important as well. So the 175, I hear what you're saying. When we were talking about it, I was looking more at the parking. And you figure if there are 175 people, there are, I think, 66 rooms in the hotel or thereabouts. A lot of people are going to be staying there. There's going to be more than one person in a car usually, and those types of things. So 175 seemed like the number that would spur that type of additional security.
Well, and it is a huge deal that the Taoist Tai Chi have opened up their parking year-round. And
And additional parking.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that's what they wanted from the very beginning,
Right.
which is,
Right.
kind of caused a lot of these problems by not having that.
Right.
So having that is going to relieve
Mhm.
a lot of issues, I think.
Right, and there will be, as I said earlier, an
Okay.
additional level of scrutiny just in terms of if Taoists are having an event, then that parking's not there, we're going to have to figure something else out.
Okay.
I
Okay,
think she's gonna
so
finish the meeting.
we'll if Mr. Collier wants to come forward and speak to any of these items you've heard.
Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome.
I don't think I can remember all of them, but in terms of the front lawn tent, it's just a practical matter. The tent comes up and down because we have to pay for it. The bride has to pay for it, so it's up and down as quickly as we can possibly get it, and also we don't want to burn our grass. So as a practical matter, if a bride wants a tent, and that's what most of the events are, I'd say 95% of a tent issue is a wedding.
It's a wedding, yeah. And the size of those? The average size?
I mean, it's again, I just asked Adam, and the number of weddings that are above 150 people is probably 9 or 10 weddings a year, because it's driven by, it's a boutique hotel, it's an 83-room hotel. If you want a 500-person wedding, you're not coming to the Fenway. We don't have the capability to produce that kind of food and beverage there. It's just not going to happen. I think one sort of historical, as a reminder, the Fenway, that neighborhood used to have about 60 on-street parking spaces. And we came in, we're kind of friendly about that process and said, okay, we're going to have resident parking around the rest of that property. The only parking spaces we were granted are the ones that line up with, they're actually property line of the Fenway where we pay the property taxes. So, at that point in time, we were like, whoa, we're losing all that on-street parking. Not aware of that being something that's done frequently where on-street parking is taken away from vendors. So we're here to work with everybody in the neighborhood. Hotel's been there a long time. We invested a lot of money in the property, obviously. The sign, we already went out and we did stakes and we did ribbons and to figure out that location to make sure, we did all that to make sure that from a visual standpoint, it wasn't going to be a problem because we wanted to make sure it looked good. We spent a lot of money. We went through a historic process with this, a historic group on, trying to achieve a couple things on the historic side. So the sign is going to be in keeping with the building, so it's going to look good aesthetically. I think you'll be happy with what you see there. In terms of the neighborhood and noise, et cetera, we came up to this concept of the sheriff really for traffic. The noise thing, we went and met with the neighborhood and we said, look, we will definitely, that's a good idea. Somebody had the idea of just pointing the speakers away from. So some of these things can be governed by the contract that the bride signs. So the bride signs a wedding, and look, we're just trying to keep this hotel full and pay for this big investment we've made in the hotel. As you know, we don't get business travelers in Dunedin, unfortunately, so Monday through Thursday, it's, out of season. There aren't a lot of people necessarily, that are coming to Fenway on, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in September. So weekends are where we have to be kind of famous in order to survive and to make this thing financially work. We did originally, if you recall, and I know Mr. Shine had a real issue with a tent that went up years and years ago on the front 2 lots over there in front of the Fenway Cottage. We sold those 2 lots to some neighbors that own those 2 lots now. We don't own those lots any longer. That was a big wedding that went on. It was like the Westinghouse family or something like that they bought out the hotel and they did a really big wedding there. And we're not doing those type of weddings anymore. That was quite a production. So hopefully the neighborhood doesn't view the Fenway as this, it's most of the times it's pretty peaceful, normal kind of operation over there. The optics of a chaotic situation going on over at the Fenway just isn't what's happening. I think we've pulled 22 tent permits in a 12-month period of time. So, there's 52 weekends a year. So we're not even pulling a permit every Saturday night. And the tent comes up and down in the front lawn. So we want it to look good. We want the property to do well. So did I miss any other questions? Anybody else?
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Yeah, I just was wondering, on average, how many you do in a year, the weddings, or special
We do a lot of
occasions?
weddings there. We do like 100 weddings at the hotel,
Okay,
but
yeah,
they're
you didn't
not
answer that
they're not
possibly.
they're not tents because the tent costs the bride more, costs us more. It's
Gotcha.
difficult to execute out there on the lawn. You got to put a dance floor on the grass. There's a lot of practical issues that occur with a tent wedding. So our preference is for them to do it in the ballroom, and that's what most brides, because they're they have a wedding block too, and they're staying in the hotel. So the 179 spaces, that's a lot of spaces for us. The Dowists have been great about that.
You don't have to worry about the weather.
Exactly.
Of course, if you have a tent, I guess you don't either.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very
Okay.
much. Okay, so what we'll do now is open it up to the public for public input. Happy to hear from you. Please step forward, give us your name and address for the record.
I guess it's me.
Yeah, sure.
So I think we have a bigger issue. Oh, this is someone's phone, so I may need my time back. I would applaud everyone for a development agreement. I think it's fundamental and foundational for our city to go through the development agreement process. Unfortunately, we have an issue. On May 2nd, 2015, this city commission did approve the development agreement. And I'll read to you a key paragraph in that development agreement. In the event that this agreement is not executed by the developer on or before 5 p.m. on the 14th day of March 2015, this agreement shall be null and void and of no further force in effect, and any development permissions granted pursuant hereto shall no longer be valid. Sounds like a reasonable problem. The problem is Peggy Peckman, I think that's her name, didn't sign it by 5 p.m. on the 14th of March. She signed it, as the notary stamp says, on the 16th day of March. So all of the development, every permit is unlawful. All construction is unlawful, both for the Tai Chi Society, and for the Fenway Hotel. All construction is unlawful. All city permits and city licenses, all state licenses, liquor licenses, lodging licenses, occupancy licenses, business licenses are all unlawful because this property was built without a valid development agreement. Therefore, as the president of the Dunedin Neighborhood Association, I ask for the following. I ask that all city permits and certificates of occupancy be immediately revoked, that the city immediately condemn all buildings under the development agreement, those both for the Tai Chi and those owned by Mainsail. The city also needs to revoke all business permits. The city needs to contact DBPR, and so that the Mainsail alcohol, restaurant, hotel, as well as the licenses that the Tai Chi Society has, need to be revoked. You need to contact and notify the city Mainsail's insurers and mortgage providers, making sure that they're aware of all the situation. And we ask for the immediate cease of all business operations. And based on the fact that all construction was done without a permit, we see no other choice than to ask for immediate condemnation and demolition of the property itself.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And it's
Okay,
funny. I'm not done. It's funny until I get a court. Until I go to court.
All right, we're not going to talk back and forth with the public. Let's not do that.
Thank you.
John.
You have a responsibility to enforce the law. You have an responsibility to
John,
enforce
your
the
time is
statutes.
up, John.
I expect that you do it.
Thank you, John. Okay, anyone else wish to come forward and speak? Hi, welcome. Give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Jennifer Ledwood. I live at 123 Valencia Drive in Dunedin, and I am the vice chair of the Edgewater Drive City Committee.
Yes, welcome.
And I just wanted to say that actually we, as a committee, sent a letter, and I believe we had discussions, and our chair had a discussion with the Fenway, and actually you've addressed everything, and I appreciate you bringing up all our points, and have left it open so that we can come and discuss anything that comes up in the future. So I just wanted to say I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Discussion.
Absolutely appreciate it. Anyone else wish to come forward and speak to the Fenway Development Agreement? Hi, welcome.
I'm deaf, but I can talk to you.
Okay.
I just don't listen to you. That's okay. Okay, my name's Moira Turner. I live in Garden Circle North. We're within 500 feet of the Fenway. They originally wrote to us and said, could they play occasional music from the upstairs bar? That was the thing. We all said, yes, fine. Nothing about 3-day weddings. Nothing about 3 days solid noise, nothing about the parking, nothing about the parties, and nothing about fireworks. So if they want to do this, they should limit the number of people coming to the wedding, which they can, because they're a boutique hotel, and they should ban fireworks and control it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to come forward? Hi, welcome.
Hi.
Give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Michelle Wilson. I live on 6983 301st Avenue North in Clearwater, Florida, but...
And you are a policy major, aren't you?
I am.
All right, come on, let's hear it.
I'm coming from St. Petersburg College. I'm in the Public Policy and Administration program. I'm also a former student from Dunedin Highland Middle School and Dunedin High School.
Go Falcons, baby.
Right. And I just wanted to touch on this agenda topic today. As we know, Dunedin is a beautiful town, one of the last personal ones in Florida to visit for both art, relaxation, and most importantly, its culture. The Fenway Hotel has been a popular destination for reunions, anniversaries, weddings, leisure, and much more, and I think a monument sign would be a very nice touch to this establishment. After being given the information to this agenda item from Joanne McHale, Business Manager of the Community Development Department, I'd like to highlight one concern with an agreement that directly affects the interests and protection of both parties involved. The issue at hand revolves around the insurance requirements outlined in the agreement and why this is absolutely critical. Firstly, the agreement stipulates insurance requirements, which is a positive step. However, it's imperative that we ensure these insurance coverages are not just present but also sufficient to safeguard both parties adequately. In the unfortunate event of a significant incident or accident, inadequate coverage could result in severe financial liabilities for one or both parties involved. We must prioritize comprehensive protection. Secondly, insurance is our primary safeguard against liability. Without crystal clear and comprehensive insurance coverage, we open the door to disputes over who bears responsibility for damages or liabilities. This could lead to protracted legal battles, draining resources, and creating financial burdens that neither party wishes to endure. Thirdly, compliance is vital. Both parties must diligently adhere to the insurance requirements throughout the agreement's terms. Failure to do so can lead to a breach of the agreement, which could result in significant legal consequences. We need to establish clear expectations for compliance. Moreover, the scope of insurance coverage must be explicitly defined. The agreement should outline the types of incidents or damages that insurance must cover. This includes specifying coverage limits, deductibles, and any exclusions. Ambiguities or gaps in coverage could be a breeding ground for disputes and uncertainties. Lastly, we must address how and when each party provides proof of insurance coverage to the other. Failing to define these procedures could result in misunderstandings and concerns. This was the only concern I felt needed to be addressed, but other than that, this future development for the Fenway Hotel is promising for both the hotel and the community. Thank you for your attention. I hope nothing but the best for the lovely city of Dunedin. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Dave.
Hi, Mayor. Thank you again.
Welcome back.
David Geddes Jr., Georgia Avenue, Palm Harbor. As a child, I knew that building as the old Billy Graham building.
Yeah, Schiller Institute and all of that, yeah.
And there was a pier across the street from it, and that pier had rotted away, or a storm had washed it away. There was some remnants, debris left in the water, a hunk of concrete and so forth. That was never, removed. And I would think a pier would be a nice addition to kind of bring it back to its old, folklore, the way it was. But removing the old debris would probably be a concern, because I don't believe, leaving an old pier into the water is appropriate.
Okay.
That should be removed.
Thanks, Dave. We want to see a pier out there, too. So do they. So we'll leave that in their hands. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Jennifer, Jennifer Cowan. You're looking at this situation that was brought up earlier. So do you still need a look? Do we need to take a quick break while you do that?
I mean, we can, but I would do more research than what would be done on a quick break. But what I can tell you is that the agreement itself is dated March 16th. So I don't know what he's referencing with regard to a notary signature, whether or not
He's
that's
saying the 15th
right.
versus the 16th.
Right, but whether or not that's just the notary's date, or whether, and whether or not that was an accurate date or a missed date on that. But
Okay, so we have done nothing illegal, and
No,
there's nothing to say that,
No, and Mayor, one thing I would point out is that this agreement has been subsequently amended multiple times, and in each one of those amendments, basically, they took the entire agreement and reenacted it with whatever changes needed to happen. And in those subsequent amendments, those were executed accordingly as well. In the
which ends
dates.
up curing whatever concern
Exactly.
Mr. Schein had from the first one. So there's no need for us to tear down the buildings.
No.
Okay, just double checking. All right, I'm going to come back to the commission. Okay, original maker of the motion, Commissioner Franey.
Yeah, this was an old rotting historic building, and the company made the investment to make it something special. It's in the middle of a neighborhood. So that's a partnership, right? It's a partnership. I certainly obviously put more emphasis on the fact that, the Fenway's got to be the lead of that partnership. I appreciate the concessions that have been made here, but again, you're in the middle of a neighborhood. So I generally talk to a few people in the neighborhood, and one of them that I like to talk to is because there's somebody who just, little music, I'm good, it's no problem. They don't get hyper-focused on it. And that's not to insult anybody that it might bother, because people are different. But one of the things that they brought to my attention, and I bring it to yours, Joe, because I think TLC and communication, their comment was, you guys were all over it in the early stages. And it seemed to have dribbled off. That same level of intensity about communicating with the neighbors about what's happening. So I would challenge you that kind of up that again so that, day 500 is as good as day one. Sometimes we don't take each other for granted a little bit after time, and we just keep that connection with the neighbors, because it is obviously a commitment on their part, too, to be in that neighborhood. But that being said, this is first reading. Welcome anybody else from the neighborhood between now and the next reading to say any other concerns. I think the big concerns have been addressed. Again, we all had prayed that this historic gem would be saved, and it was. And, so maybe we've got some growing pains here, but I think we're trying to work together to solve them. And I think, so at this point, I certainly support this agreement.
Thank you. The seconder of the motion was Commissioner Gao.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Freeney, you looked at my notes apparently and stole all my thunder. No, but it's absolutely right. That property has a long history in Dunedin, and I have to thank Mansell that came in and partnered and really took it over and has done a wonderful job. I guess it first started with the Taoist Society, so you partnered with them, and they really have partnered with the community. My concerns about 5 years from now, I think those are relevant. But to Commissioner Freeney's comments about that relationship with the residents, and it really is a relationship. Like every relationship, communication is key. And if communication is dropping off, that quick response and just making sure that the residents around you know that you care and you're addressing concerns. I think most of the major concerns in the agreement have been addressed, so I'm certainly supportive of that, but do welcome all other comments on the issue. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. As I mentioned before, I did ask for a special meeting with the city manager, and we had George and Joey there, because I was very concerned about some of the things that I had heard, and I just wanted to make sure that they had been covered. I'll give you a quick summary of that. In conclusion, I was very comfortable with everything that I was told, and I thought it was really well covered. I have a lot of history with that building. My daughter is the only one that went to 4 years of prior to college in that building, so I've been in that building a lot. I love the building. Everybody loves the building. And so what do you do with the building? Do you make it a place for workers to live, or do you sublet it out, sublet rooms out, or make it a short-term hotel, small hotel? We made it a fantastic hotel. The problem that I had in wanting the input on this is that there's always going to be some of the residents that just don't want that there, and I understand that. So why don't they want that there? Well, there's a couple concerns, and I was hearing those consistently, and one of them was noise, and one of them was parking. So I really keyed on that and other things as well, and I mentioned those. But as far as the noise goes, I think that I'll just say the hotel. I think the hotel is very cognizant of that. That was covered in the agreement. To the best, I couldn't come up with anything better that sounded better. And there's going to be people that still don't want to hear that music. it's there, but at least it was covered, and certainly on Sunday at 10, and the rest of it was at 11 o'clock, just like the other places are. So if it had been another kind of hotel, it would have had the same requirement, same noise ordinance. Only in this case, we backed it off just a little bit, because of some input that was given. So just really quick, the parking, Tai Chi stepped up and resolved that issue for me. The 15 spaces that were given earlier, still a little bit painful, but they needed it. Where were they going to park? So that happened a long time ago, 2015. And I was really happy about the arrangement that was made. The 175-person issue, I was assured in our conversations, not only does that exist and was accepted, but that the city manager was going to be very mindful of all of the activity that was going on for the tents and how many people were going to be there. Now, someone can say, fine, you get another city manager, or she finally decides that she doesn't care anymore, but I don't think that's the case, and I don't think that will be the case, and so I thought it was a good solution. I wasn't concerned about the shade tent, although I had noticed that it was in the documentation. I would assume that they'll do what they wish to do, what's good for the hotel, and if they discover they don't need it, which they will need it, they're going to put something up there that really applies to the hotel, and I think that's fine. So the wedding, I sort of keyed on the Westinghouse. I remember that, and I go by there on occasion because I'm driving around looking at things and watching people and watching what's happening, and I remember that big tent, but it doesn't exist anymore. The property was taken care of. So in the end, as I looked at this, I thought that this was a fair and perhaps the best solution to where we are today. And I was very comfortable, and I want to thank staff because I was a little nervous. I thought there was a lot of stuff there, and I ended up being very comfortable with what took place. So I know there's going to be a few people that may not be particularly happy with that, but I think it's the best solution, so I'm very supportive. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Commissioner Walker?
Yeah, so, I think the amendment, as it's written, is addressing the core tenets of things that need to be improved with the agreement with Mainsail. There's some other elements that I took away from this, though, too, in terms of the other aspects of this. I was at the Edgewater Advisory Committee when they were drafting the letter, which a lot of these comments were generated from, and I greatly. From the proactiveness of the hotel in working with the neighborhood to address these, I think is really a big feather in your cap, because at the end of the day, those of us who are sitting up here in the commission, we represent the neighborhoods, the people that are impacted, and and you cannot deny, and I'll be perfectly honest, Fenway Hotel, before we purchased our house, was our home away from home, and it's a wonderful property. I think that in terms of how the amendment came together and the fact that there were some ancillary concerns that had to be addressed in terms of noise abatement or noise directional, whatever you want to call it, I think the fact that we're addressing those, I think, is important. Now, as we go forward with this amendment, it's going to be imperative that obviously these concerns that are listed in here and part of the agreement and stuff, then, we have to make sure that, I think somebody used the term up our game in terms of how we manage this in the future. And so anyway, and the one other thing is Tai Chi coming forward and offering up the parking spots. This really kind of starts taking the optic of being community collaboration, a good business partner, neighborhood concerns getting addressed, and going forward and doing the right thing with the amendment. So anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Walker. So, Mr. Collier, I think you've heard what we've all had to say. Just continue to be a good community partner. I know that you're not on site all the time. You have other investment properties, so it's just important for the management team to understand where the neighborhood stands. I know, that's why I'm looking at you there, buddy. It's just really important because they are your neighbors and you're their neighbor. You know, you want them to come to your place for dinner. You want them to come and have drinks on your rooftop bar. You don't want them to hate your guts. We don't want them to hate your guts either. So I do appreciate everybody working together. I appreciate the willingness of all parties to let us put a pause on this so that we could get some of those things worked out for the neighborhood. I feel like we really listened to what everybody had to say. Jennifer took the stack of emails I had printed out that I left on my desk. I told her where it was. She went and got it, made sure she addressed every single concern in all of those emails. So, you know, I do think we listen. It may not be totally perfect, and I know Jennifer will continue to work with you guys on events. Just remember that you do have neighbors, you know? If there is going to be fireworks, you might want to let the neighborhood know, you know? Anyway, okay, so let's see, and we will have a second reading. Jennifer Cowan, will you just double check on all that so when we have our second reading?
Yeah.
I want to know that you researched it fully.
Okay.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Walker.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Tornga. Aye. Commissioner Gao.
Aye.
Commissioner Franny.
Aye.
Mayor Burzowski.
Aye, that motion passes unanimously. We will have a second reading of ordinance 23-05 scheduled for October 5th, 2023. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We're going to take a short break, and I have first dibs on the restroom. Okay, we are back in session, and we're now on the application for voluntary annexation, land use amendment, and zoning district designation of 2010 Greenbrier Boulevard, Clearwater. Joey, you're going to give us the whole presentation, but we're just going to read the ordinance 23-09 on voluntary annexation first. Jennifer, please.
Mayor, I'm happy to read that, but just so you know, this is a quasi-judicial matter, so do you want to swear people in, or would you like to do that after I read the title?
After you read the title.
23-09, an ordinance of the City of Dunedin, Florida, annexing certain real property located at 2010 Greenbrier Boulevard, parcel number 36-28-150-000-240-0200, with designated meets and bounds totaling approximately 11.52 acres into the corporate limits of the city, providing for filing with the clerk of the court and providing for an effective date. That was ordinance 2309, read by title only.
Thank you. Does anyone need to disclose any ex parte contacts for the record? No. Okay, Rebecca?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you are about to give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, Joey, let's go.
Thank you, and good evening again. Joseph DuPasqua on behalf of Community Development, and yes, I will do a collective presentation on all three ordinances. The applicant information in this case is BSH Preserve LLC. They're also the owner, and their representative is Matthew Poling from Trenum Law. Mr. Poling is with us this evening. The petition, as you mentioned, is the application for voluntary annexation of the subject property from unincorporated Pinellas County into the City of Dunedin, including placing land use plan and zoning district designations on the property. Address again, 2010 Greenbrier Boulevard, Clearwater 33763, and the area of the property is more or less 11.52 acres. Quick background, the property, most of you are probably familiar, those who are watching perhaps or listening, the property is located at the northwest corner of Virginia and Greenbrier. It's an unplatted parcel of land. It's again about 11.5 acres. There are currently two uses on the property: an assisted living facility that was built in 2012. It's called the Preserve at Clearwater, and a 1955 office building which has a private school in it called the Service Learning Micro School. A large portion of the property, I'll note, is undeveloped and as preservation. The reason we're here basically today, this is somewhat of a city, I'll say a city-initiated request, in that back in 1985, in exchange for the city providing sanitary sewer to the property, a declaration of covenants and restrictions did set forth that at some time when the property becomes contiguous, it would annex in. Of course, the recent annexations of the Gladys Douglas Preserve, the Jerry Lake property, and the city's wastewater maintenance facility on Greenbrier made it contiguous. And so for these reasons, plus it's within our planning area, you have the application for your consideration this evening. Real quickly, this is a Google Street View of the ALF, the Preserve at Clearwater. It's an assisted living facility housing 93 beds. It's a 3-story structure, just over 93,000 square feet in area. Moving around to Virginia, there's 1950 Virginia Avenue is the Service Learning Micro School. This is a grade K through 12. It's a 1-story building, about 4,600 square feet. My understanding, there's about 50 students that attend this school. The land use plan we're proposing is essentially the same as what is in the county at the moment. So there's 3 separate land uses on the property. The only real difference is the institutional is being replaced by public, semi-public, because we do not have institutional any longer in our comp plan. So it was replaced with that. I will tell you that the densities, intensities, floor area ratios, and things of that nature are the same for both, so it really is a like for like. And we are proposing to place those 3 land uses, meaning public, semi-public, where the institutional is today, the residential low where the county's residential low is, and then where the preservation area is in the county, we're proposing to use that same designation, essentially following the same shapes of those designated areas. From a zoning perspective, of course, zoning being city-specific, we are recommending where the public, semi-public land use is being placed, we're proposing neighborhood business on that area, and that will allow the uses that are on there to be legally conforming, both by use, by density and intensity, as well as our dimensional setbacks for the NB zoning district. So in a nutshell, what that means is we're not creating any nonconformities with our zoning. There's a small portion that is residential low. We're recommending placing that in the R90, and that's because that would be consistent with the land use. Keeping the land use RL, you would want a residential zoning to be placed over top of that. And then finally, it's customary for us to place conservation zoning over land use that is preservation. So that area that is preserved will have a conservation zoning. So the configurations of the zoning will follow the underlying land use. From a past action standpoint, this application and these three ordinances were heard and considered by the LPA on August 9th of this year, and they unanimously recommended approval of all three ordinances to the City Commission. And then from a next action standpoint, if the first reading of all three ordinances are approved this evening, of course, we will transmit the land use plan amendment to Forward Pinellas for review and approval as a Tier 1 amendment, because it is going like for like, so there's not changing, there's no intensity here. That process takes roughly 2 months, and then we'll be bringing back, of course, re-advertising and bringing back all three ordinances one evening for second and final readings. So that being said, staff is recommending approval of application AN LUPZO 2302 and the following ordinances. Ordinance 2309, that's the voluntary annexation of the subject property into the city of Dunedin. Ordinance 2310 to designate the property as public, semi-public, residential low, and preservation on the city's future land use plan map following annexation in that configuration I showed you on the previous slides. And then in the same configuration, we're recommending under Ordinance 2311 to designate the property as neighborhood business. Again, that would be consistent with the public, semi-public area, single-family residential over top of the RL land use, and conservation over the preservation land use. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions. And again, Mr. Poling is here this evening as well.
Okay, any questions for Joe? No? Okay, this is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to come forward and speak to this item, please feel free to do so. Seeing or hearing none, can I have a motion to approve ordinance 23-09 to annex the property?
So moved.
Okay, Commissioner Walker and Commissioner Gao. Any final comments? All right, roll call vote.
Vice Mayor Tornga.
Aye.
Commissioner Franny.
Aye.
Commissioner Gao.
Aye.
Commissioner Walker.
Aye.
And Mayor Brzezowski.
Aye, that motion passes unanimously. Then we have ordinance 23-10, land use designation. Jennifer, would you please read ordinance 23-10 by title only?
Ordinance 23-10, an ordinance of the City of Dunedin, Florida, amending the City of Dunedin's land use plan as adopted by Ordinance 20-1 on certain real property following annexation located at 2010 Briar Boulevard, parcel number 36-28-15-000-240-0200 with designated meets and bounds totaling approximately 11.52 acres to assign the public/semi-public P/SP residential low RL and preservation P land use designations and providing for an effective date. That was ordinance 2310, read by title only.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Vice Mayor and Commissioner Walker, thank you. Any questions on the land use designation from the commission? Seeing or hearing none, anyone wish to come forward and speak to the land use designation? Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Franny.
Aye.
Commissioner Gao.
Aye.
Commissioner Walker.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Tornga.
Aye.
Mayor Brzezowski.
Aye, and that motion passes unanimously. And then finally, ordinance 23-11 zoning designation. Jen, please read ordinance 23-11 by title only.
Ordinance 23-11, an ordinance of the City of Dunedin, Florida, zoning certain real property following annexation located at 2010 Greenbrier Boulevard, parcel number 36-28-15-00-240-0200, with the designated meets and bounds and totaling approximately 11.52 acres to neighborhood business, NB, single-family residential, R90, and conservation, C, providing for an effective date. That was that was ordinance 23-11, read by title only.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Walker and Commissioner Franny, thank you. Any questions? Okay, anybody from the public wish to speak to zoning? Seeing or hearing none, roll call vote.
Vice Mayor Tornga?
Aye.
Commissioner Gao?
Aye.
Commissioner Franny?
Aye.
Commissioner Walker?
Aye.
Mayor Buszowski?
Aye, and that motion passes unanimously. There will be a second reading on ordinance 2309, 23-10, 23-11, scheduled after approval with the county. So maybe a little bit before we get that. So thank you. Thanks for sticking around. Appreciate it. All right, and then we have the proposed agenda for the September 21st commission meeting. We have the second reading of the firefighters' pension system. We have the final adoption of the budget. We have a resolution on the business plan, and we have the sheriff's addendum for their law enforcement and a resolution for employee service plan rules. May I suggest that the second reading of the firefighter pension be at the end?
At the end. And
Just because the other ones will require more talking, and I just think they should be first.
And then the only thing that I just realized, I don't see the proposed agenda for October 5th. Should be
Right,
added to
that should be on there as well.
Yes, please.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so can I have a motion to approve that agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Franny and Commissioner Gao, thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Wonderful, motion passes
Excuse
unanimously.
me, Mayor. Should we add the clock issue to that agenda?
Stop it.
Just-
Stop it.
just say-
Okay. Anything else informational that we all need to know?
Yeah, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to add, because I thought it was important to bring up that debris removal for some of our flooded roadways while the residents were here. But I did want to say that today I signed 2 emergency POs for that debris removal. As I said, it's FEMA eligible for reimbursement, but the good news is we can get them there on Monday. But I wanted, that was the reason why, specifically why I wanted to bring it up. I signed the emergency POs, and I wanted to put that out on, on the dais in a public meeting. We will bring one of them back to you. It's about, I think that one was $150,000. The other one was within my delegated authority.
Okay. And you were able to get the email addresses, right?
Yes.
Great, and you'll pass that along to Jennifer. And you'll get your team to sit down and meet with them. Because, I know they asked to meet with us, except that we're not subject matter experts, and I think it would be much more beneficial for you and your subject matter expert department heads to meet with them for whatever they need.
We'll do an evening meeting because
Yeah.
I think it's easier for them to attend.
Sure.
Here at City Hall. We'll explain, we'll bring our best and brightest. We'll explain that this is really an operational issue, not a commission issue, but that we'll be reporting back to you.
Okay, but you'll do that as soon as humanly possible?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
So not to add to it, but you might want to have that opportunity for, the other 1 or 2 areas that were, had the same issues. Different issues, but I don't know. I just think at this point, we've got an unusual event that occurred. People are stressed out, and whatever listening we can do and whatever there may be or maybe we can't do, we should just really be very focused on that.
I do think there might be, I'm pretty sure there's a Baywood Shores, I'll call it a homeowners association, it's probably not official, Mario might be a good person to reach out to, or Teresa O'Day. They both live in there, and they're probably pretty connected to the neighborhood.
Okay.
And I'm sure we have Teresa's contact, and I have Mario's. Well, actually, when we lost all our stuff, his number probably went with it. But, I'm just saying, I don't disagree, but I think that this particular neighborhood has two different things going on.
Yeah.
And that's why you're not seeing Baywood Shores here right now.
Right.
It's because we've had the tidal influenced flooding there, as Jeff and I get tagged regularly by Tracy on Facebook about it. And, so I do think this one's different, but I don't disagree.
And I don't know if there's anything we can do about this, but I do have the concerns on those new residents that say they were never, ever aware. And that's more of a real estate transaction issue than.
It is. It's
But I don't know if that's something that we need to lobby the state on.
Well,
And that's.
let me just say that Mo's been, and I didn't know you could do this, shows you how much I know. You said when you were buying your house, you checked the FEMA records to see if certain houses had flooding issues before.
Yeah, I mean, I think what happens is it becomes a record. I mean, again, I know enough to be dangerous, but as my recollection was, if you've been flooded at least twice, you go on that FEMA record and people get to see it. It's a public record. And so that way, and a couple of the properties that I think got flooded again were on that list because one of them was up for sale when we were buying. So there's that kind of thing. I mean, it's not foolproof, obviously, but it's one way to make sure people do know how to check.
But I think what's happening with this particular street, North Douglas, is, they might have been aware of that tidal flooding, but they may not have, and so they're looking at this major flooding and hearing the neighbors say, oh, we get flooding all the time, and seeing it as something different.
This happens every week.
Because even when I said earlier, there's nothing you can do about 4 to 7 feet tidal surge, storm surge. There was a lady or two, I can't remember back there, claiming bullcrap. Well, there isn't. I don't care where you live. There's nothing. It wouldn't matter whether they had tidal flooding or not. The tidal flooding, I think the neighborhood is a little bit used to it, and we've been working on it for the last 3 or 4 years, ever since Tracy started tagging us, as you know.
Right.
Trying to figure that out.
Well, we actually did exactly what Tracy wanted us to do. She moved out, which is restore that
The weir and
area to its original condition when the permit was approved. And that's what we did. So that work has been done. I think that the assessment of vulnerable areas is going to be crucial, because then we'll know exactly what we need to do, what's most vulnerable, where we put the funding first, and look for, there's a lot of grant funding out there. I know that's usually the fallback. Let's go get a grant, but there's a lot of grant funding out there.
Yeah.
So.
But it was interesting, too, the comment about seawall. Because, of course, Jeff, this, sustainability-wise, that is not always the answer. It's a complicated issue, and it goes to the heart, and I think you may have suggested it. I don't know who suggested that we have a whole session on this about, what's coming and what we have to, where we can put our money and where it won't make sense to put the money, and, it's some tough issues here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate that a lot, and I appreciate your and Sue's comments to the neighborhood. It's very devastating to see that somebody's going through this. I can't even imagine.
Thank you, Mayor.
Me and tears, too, especially that one lady.
Yeah, that's very difficult. Okay. Don't forget about homecoming parade tomorrow.
Tomorrow, 4:30.
4:30 at the pool.
Lindsay was telling me that we were all meeting at the Fine Arts Center.
The what?
The Fine Arts Center. We're a little farther away.
We've never met at the Fine Arts Center. We've always met in the pool parking lot.
Then we're meeting at the pool parking lot.
I mean, unless somebody's told you something different, it's always been in that pool parking lot, between the pool and the fire station. It's like gravel or something?
I don't
That's
have,
where all
I
the
don't have a
kids-
dog in the fight.
That's where all the
so-
floats and the kids stage,
Right.
because there's a lot of space there.
Right, and I get that, and I think the reason she thought the Fine Arts Center, because it's away from that.
Yeah.
We can park our cars, get on the cart, drive over there, but we can meet there, I don't care. So.
Yeah, and that person who's, oh,
and
what's his name?
actually-
He's just going to have to bring us back so we can get our cars.
Right, and so, well, but all the people here are, so.
We're all
we
riding
ju-
together.
We just need to know where to meet, so if we want to meet at the pool, that's fine. So that's.
Where I always go and park my car.
Then we're meeting at the pool, and the driver is actually not Lindsay. The, indirectly,
Which Lindsay are we talking about? Your Lindsay or our Lindsay?
our Lindsay. Yeah, we were looking for a driver, we got a cart, don't have a driver.
well.
And I don't know if this is a public meeting.
Yeah, no, we don't, yeah.
Yeah.
I can drive.
Yeah, we're still
I'm
taking
happy to
minutes
drive.
here.
Okay, all right, let's go.
Okay.
Let's get out of here and go home. All right, good night, everybody.